The August sun over Dry Mesa looked pale this year, the way an old lamp does when its wick has burned too low. Dust hovered in the air like a warning nobody heeded, and for the first time since the first sodbuster staked a claim along the Palmer, river people whispered that maybe the mesa had finally dried up for good. Drusilla Marquette felt those whispers every time she inhaled. They burned the back of her throat, fouled her canteen, and clung to her eyelids whenever she tried to sleep. But the dust was only half the reason she had not slept in 3 nights. The other half stood rotting in the ravine behind the bunkhouse, a bleached white mule, 2 spent shell casings, and footprints leading south toward the railroad spur. The mule had belonged to Ezra Tulliver, her ranch's most reliable hand and the only man who could drive a 6-mule team straight through a thunderstorm without losing a trace of cargo. But Ezra would never drive again, because someone had shot him twice, once in the shoulder to drop him, once in the back of the head to keep him down, and rolled him and his faithful beast into the ravine like so much garbage. Drew knew the first casing on site, .4570 government, brass still bright enough to catch noon light. The second, though shorter, darker, smudged around the neck, told a different story. A .44 Henry rimfire, the kind of round a tenderfoot tourist buys because the clerk at Bell's General Store swears it will fit whatever rifle he's carrying. Caleb Storm, foreman of the sprawling Double C brand across the valley, would never shoot such a mismatched pair of cartridges. Neither would his boss, and yet both men had signed their names across Ezra's chest all the same. Drew might have ridden straight to the sheriff right then and there, but the sheriff was Caleb's half-brother, and half-brothers in Dry Mesa stuck together tighter than hogs in a mud wallow. So instead she lifted those cartridges with a pair of sugar tongs, slipped them into an oilskin envelope, and locked them in the little iron strongbox that lived beneath her floorboards, alongside a single, handwritten promise. *I won't draw unless somebody else pulls first. Ezra's death did not count as somebody else pulling first. She reminded herself, not yet, but it had put a crack clear through the promise's spine. The wind shifted, carrying the ranch's evening. Smells creosote, horse sweat, and kettle beans past her nose. Drew exhaled, dropping from her perch atop the water tower onto the catwalk ringing its midsection. From there she could see the whole of the Marquette spread, 1,200 fenced acres of red grass and brittle-bone yucca, and in the distance, a silver sliver where the Palmer once ran swift and cold. These days the river looked more like tarnished tin, its surface broken by sandbars where cattle now trudged instead of trout. The Double Key had dammed the Palmer 10 miles upstream, legally at first through water rights older than most of the territory's graves, then illegally by sluicing half the current into a private spillway that vanished beneath the limestone bluffs. That spillway kept Double C stock plump while Marquette steers wheezed dust, and if Drew didn't act soon, her entire herd would die on their feet before winter's first sleet. She slung her Winchester across her back and descended the water tower ladder, boots landing in ochre powder that puffed up around her ankles. In the yard below, the ranch's cook sang Ho Sam, pack ring in a triangle to call the hands for supper. Only 5 men answered. 3 weeks ago they would have been 15. The others had drifted off toward easier ranges or lane, down in shallow desert graves, or like Ezra, never come back at all. Sam's eyes tracked her as she crossed the yard. He said nothing. It took more than hunger to pry words from Sam, but he nodded once toward the ravine. Drew understood. Sam wanted blood. She wanted water. One way or another, both needs would be met before another sunrise. Inside the mess hall, the men chewed in uneasy silence, broken only by tin spoons scraping bean pots. Drew stood at the end of the long table and waited until every gaze lifted. "I buried Ezra this morning," she said. "When we're done eating, I need volunteers for one more night ride to the bluff. Same plan. Count wagons, mark guard shifts, And if you can bring me back a piece of that spillway sluice without being seen, I'll pay bounty out of my own pocket. A pause. Nobody rides alone tonight. We partner up one rifle, one notebook, same. As last time, we're not trading lives for scrap. No one spoke. She saw grief in their faces and fear, and something harder, something that looked a little too much like resignation. Levi Guthrie, her oldest hand, cleared his throat. Miss Marquette, begging your pardon, but Ezra was partnered up with me last night. We stuck to the plan. We took our notes. Hell, we never saw who pulled trigger on him. And I ain't ashamed to say I don't aim to see it next time, neither. Drew swallowed the retort boiling under her tongue. Levi was 52, age-bowed, and rattled by every cough. Asking him to run another midnight recon after watching his partner's brains spill down limestone was cruelty, pure and simple. Understood, she said quietly. You can stay. But I'm still going. Alone? The word carried more judgment than question. I won't be alone, Drew answered, and every man in the room knew who she meant. Silas Quill hated the desert. The sand got inside his boots, his teeth, his ears, every crevice the good Lord had carved into mortal flesh, and no amount of tobacco plugs could scrape it clean. Yet here he lounged on the sagging porch of Marquette Ranch House, chair tipped. Back against the whitewashed siding, Sharp's rifle propped across his lap like a sleeping hound. Evening, Dove, he drawled when Drew appeared. He called her Dove not out of affection. It was a gambler's habit, sticking false gentility to things he meant to pocket. But something in the way his eyes softened around her name made the nickname land easier than most. Drew stopped at the porch steps. Need you awake and sober, Silas. We ride for the bluffs in an hour. Awake's easy, he said, straightening the chair. Sober's negotiable. He uncorked a hip flask, lifted it toward her in salute, then drained what little whiskey remained. Drew almost smiled. Silas measured sobriety by the inch mark inside that flask, the way preachers measured souls by pew count first tally, then forgive. You know you don't have to do this, she said when he capped the empty container. Can't very well let you hike alone into Caleb Storm's back pasture, Silas answered, leaning the Sharps against the railing. Besides, you promised me a show, said them bluffs glow green under moonlight. I mighty favor green these days. Drew's almost smile disappeared. It always did when Silas talked pretty. She learned young how pretty talk turns ugly fast. But Silas had seen that ugliness too, and somehow it made his words both safer and sadder. It'll be darker than sin long before we're in position, she warned. Silas winked. Plenty o' green in sin, dear Dove, just buried under the crust. He stood, stretched, and slung the Sharps. Where you want the horses? We circle south around Widow Rock, Drew instructed, grateful to trade banter for logistics. Leave the animals in the dry wash and leg it the remaining half-mile. Less noise, less dust. She paused, weighing whether to confess her biggest worry. Storm's foreman has a new gunhawk man named Dunlop Cade. Pinkerton dropout if rumors true. Shoots like God's own lightning. Lightning's predictable, Silas said. You know when it'll strike because you see the flash first. He lifted his Sharps, slapped the breech shut with one hand, and shouldered the rifle. Cade won't get a flash. Not tonight. Drew believed him. She could count on one hand the shooters who matched Silas for raw accuracy, and on half a finger those who matched his patience. Silas once waited 3 hours in bruising cold for a wolf to shift 10 yards so the bullet could pass between two calves. He swore he'd rather miss than risk a ricochet into the innocent. But Silas had one flaw he liked credit more than caution, liked the applause of a clean kill more than the bloom of silence when the target merely fled. One shot, she reminded him. When I say when, and not a breath sooner, we're there to gather proof, not start range war. We'll have proof, Silas promised, his voice solemn now. We'll have Ezra's justice too, even if justice looks an awful lot like an entry wound. They rode at dusk, hooves muffled in red dust that rose around fetlocks like ghost smoke. Drew carried the Winchester and her notebook. Silas toted the sharps and a spotting scope wrapped in cloth. They spoke little long rides needed breath more than words, and when they did it, was spare and practical. The way squaws talk over campfire, low, brief, and never about fear. Widow Rock loomed by first moonrise, its granite face etched with centuries of wind-carved sorrow. They left the horses in a narrow arroyo choked by ocotillo and crept on foot through knee-high sage until the land sloped upward into pale limestone. Each step sent shards skittering off into the dark. Each scrape made Drew wince. But no lanterns flickered on the plateau ahead, and the only sound was the patient hush of night wind sliding along stone. Ribbed out at the bluff's lip they dropped to their stomachs. Below lay Caleb Storm's dam, a rough timber wall piled high, with rock fill stretching across the Palmer like a scar. Lantern clusters dotted the structure, 3 at the spillway valve, 2 near the guard shack, another swinging from a post in the watchtower where a lone sentry sat cleaning an Italian-made carbine. Drew felt her pulse tick. Means Storm expects trouble tonight, which means someone tipped him. She thought of Levi's trembling hands, Sam's nod toward revenge, every frightened ranch hand who'd begged for release. Any one of them could have talked in town. We get what we need and leave, she decided. But Silas had gone still. Dove, look east bank. He passed the scope. Drew followed the glass until it found motion. 2 riders easing single file down a goat track, careful as thieves. The first man wore Marquette colors, denim vest with straw braid piping, the second the bold red kerchief of double key. Levi. Drew breathed. And the man behind him was Caleb Storm himself. Storm dismounted, leaving Levy seated on his dun gelding, hands bound at the wrist. They stopped near Cade's hide, though Storm kept to the shadows cast by the dam. There. He paced, gesturing at the bound rider. Even without lip reading, Drew understood the threat. Levi would talk or Levi would bleed. Silas whispered, "Storm's setting bait. Wants you to reveal yourself." Drew's vision tunneled, spillway, lantern, Levi's silhouette trembling in the half-light. She had 10 seconds to choose. Expose herself and rescue Levi, or stay hidden and keep the notebook evidence but sacrifice another loyal man. Storm drew his revolver. Silas cocked the sharps. "I can take him," he said. "Easy." His finger caressed the trigger. Drew's mind raced through angles, distances, wind. She lined up the shot, her shot imagining the bullet's arc from Silas's barrel to Storm's chest. She calculated. Drop, drift, penetration. The math felt cold, precise, inevitable. "On my mark," she murmured. Storm pressed the revolver into Levi's gut. Levi bucked, but Storm back handed him hard enough that blood arced into lantern glow. Drew exhaled, counting down from 3. Silas's rifle boomed on 2. The bullet found its mark center mass, but not Storm's. Levi spasmed, gurgled, and toppled off the gelding. Storm dove aside, eyes wild, then screamed Cade's name. "No!" Drew surged half upright, fury shredding her discipline. She grabbed the Winchester, but Silas's gloved hand clamped her wrist. "Had to," he hissed. "Storm's worth more alive. Levi would have talked them blue. Now we've got silence. Now asterisk Krang." Cade's custom rifle barked. The limestone shelf 6 inches from Drew's temple exploded in powder. Another bark. Silas jerked sideways, rifle flying from his hand. Blood sprayed Drew's cheek, warm. And slick. Cade chambered again, methodical as a metronome. "Move!" Silas shoved her toward the ridge. She stumbled, ears ringing, Winchester slipping. Storm howled orders below. Lanterns bobbed, multiplying like demon eyes. Drew dragged Silas behind a basalt outcrop. His shoulder oozed where Cade's slug had torn a groove. "Can you run?" she whispered. Silas's laugh sounded wet. "Run? Dove, I can fly." He reached for his fallen sharps, but the rifle lay yards away, silhouette bright against moon-washed stone. Below, Cade began climbing the bluff. "We split," Drew said, voice tremoring for the first time. "I'll draw him west. You head for the wash. Take the horses." Silas grabbed her collar. "No splitting," he gritted. "Not tonight." He searched her gaze, something like apology. "Bleeding through pain. I took the shot you lined up. Only one of us needs to make the report, Dove. Might as well be you. Get that evidence to someone who'll use it." She shook her head, tears mixing with dust. "Not how it works. Not after Ezra. Not after Levi." Cade's boots crunched nearer. Silas drew his sidearm, a stub-nosed Colt, checked the cylinder. "I slow him, you go." A grim smile. "Odds even now lightning's got company." He shoved the Colt into her. "Hand instead. Go, Drew." Then he lurched upright, staggering east toward Cade's approach, boots leaving a bright ribbon of blood across the pale stone. Drew crouched, torn between duty and loyalty. But duty won, or maybe loyalty to a larger cause. She slipped west, keeping low, notebook clutched tight. Drew felt her pulse tick. Means Storm expects trouble tonight, which means someone tipped him. She thought of Levi's trembling hands, Sam's nod toward revenge, every frightened ranch hand who'd begged for release. Any one of them could have talked in town. "We get what we need and leave," she decided. But Silas had gone still. "Dove, look East Bank." He passed the scope. Drew followed the glass until it found motion. Two riders easing single file down a goat track, careful as thieves. The first man wore Marquette colors, denim vest with straw braid piping, the second the bold red kerchief of double key. "Levi." Drew breathed. And the man behind him was Caleb Storm himself. Storm dismounted, leaving Levi seated on his dun gelding, hands bound at the wrist. They stopped near Cade's hut, boots drawing nearer. Drew flattened herself against the arroyo wall, every nerve wide awake. The Colt's cylinder felt absurdly small, 5 rounds after she thumbed one into her boot for luck, and each sounded like a church bell clanging. Inside the chambers, she drew air slow through her nose, tasting alkali and the faint copper note of Silas's blood still drying on her cheek. Asterisk crunch, pause, crunch. Whoever tracked her moved with confidence. Cade? No, Cade glided on the balls of his feet, barely rustling gravel. This stride carried more weight, the deliberate tromp of somebody who wanted to be heard. A man who believed silence belonged to the guilty. Sheriff Leander Storm, Caleb's half-brother, emerged on the ridge, lantern lifted. His star glinted flat and cold against his vest, cheap tin polished too often. He scanned the wash with a rifleman's patience, muzzle sweeping like a clock second hand. Drew pressed her back into the mudbank, Colt cocked. If Leander spotted her, she would have to decide: kill a lawman and brand herself outlaw, or surrender and see her evidence. Misplaced in the sheriff's desk. She pictured Ezra's skull, the .44 rimfire case glittering like a false coin. She pictured Silas marching toward Cade with nothing but bravado and a leaking artery. Asterisk. Remember, asterisk, he took the shot she lined up, but only one of them made the report. The sheriff's lantern haloed the arroyo floor now, a slow golden tide. Drew angled the Colt, using its blued barrel to mirror the light without exposing her skin. Cowboys called the trick moon peeking. Let polished steel show you what your eyes dared not. In that warped reflection she saw Leander's face lined, sun cracked yet youthful around the mouth where cruelty liked to hide. His rifle hung relaxed in the crook of his elbow. His other hand dangled near the lantern hook, casually free. Too casual. Drew followed the gleam downward and spotted what his right boot nudged. A rawhide lariat coiled like a sleeping snake, Rope meant prisoner, not corpse. Leander wanted her alive. Why? To swap for the notebook? Or because Caleb Storm preferred trophies that breathed? Either way, Drew would not decorate Caleb's wall. She slid her left palm across the arroyo floor until her fingertips brushed a fist-sized rock. Smooth edges, heavy for its size. River stone rolled here, ages before the dam. Perfect. She waited until Leander's lantern dipped, signaling another visual sweep. On the downswing, she pitched the stone westward. It clacked off shale 20 yards away. Leander spun, rifle snapping to shoulder. "Hold it! Show yourself!" He advanced toward the noise, lantern thrust forward like a knight's shield. That was her window. Drew crab crawled the opposite direction, keeping low, boots silent in powdery silt. The Colt's hammer brushed sage stems. Each rustle sounded monstrous, but Leander kept barking at ghosts down slope. She reached Widow Rock's shadow and climbed by feel. The Colt clenched in teeth, notebook stuffed under belt. Fingers found handholds, boots sought cracks. At the ridge crest she risked a glance back. The sheriff knelt where the stone had landed, lantern raised to bones. He had not given up. He would trace her tracks come daylight, but for tonight. She had slipped the snare. Drew sprinted, lungs aflame, until the mesa dropped into rolling chaparral. 2 miles of night and raw determination carried her to the narrow wagon track leading toward town. Ahead, faint lanterns bobbed dry messes. Midnight drunks weaving home. No horses, no allies, and a Colt half-loaded. But she had the notebook and breaths in her chest. Silas might still be alive or dead, but either way, his sacrifice bought her this miles-long fuse. She intended to set something explosive at its end. Dry mesa at 2 a.m. smelled of stale beer, mesquite charcoal, and unresolved tension. Drew hugged the shadows between shuttered storefronts until she reached Bell's General. Inside, a single lamp burned behind the counter where Myra Bell dozed over ledger entries. Drew rapped twice. Myra jolted, knocking her spectacles askew. "Lord's mercy, Drew, you near made me green beans, girl, your face." She gestured Drew inside, barred the door, and fetched a damp cloth. The cloth came away crimson. "Not mine," Drew murmured. "Silas," Myra stiffened. "Dead? Don't know." Drew peeled the bloody kerchief from her cheek. "But if he falls, this territory tips with him. I need supplies, ink, blank ledger, and any .45 Colt cartridges you can spare." Myra produced a tin. 8 rounds. "Rest sold to Leander's posse yesterday." She bundled ink and paper. "What's the plan?" exposed Caleb. Drew's voice felt brittle but carried. "Ride south to Clifton Telegraph at dawn, wire the territorial governor. We send affidavits, sketch maps, cartridge casings, proof the Storm brothers steal water and murder for it." Myra chewed her bottom lip. "And if Clifton lines?" "Cut. Last month raiders took half its polls. Then I ride to Selway City, but Clifton's closer." Drew packed the notebook with new supplies. "If I don't make it, you know who gets this." Myra touched the strongbox key on a chain. Around her neck, the duplicate Drew had given her after Ezra's funeral. "I'll send word." Boots clattered outside. Myra snuffed the lamp, pulled Drew behind flour sacks. Voices drifted through cracks. Leander Storm delegating search squads, orders crisp as dry leaves. "Check every room above the saloons. Every stable loft. She's bleeding, won't get far." When the posse rode on, Myra exhaled. "Take my mule. Old Sugarfoot won't gallop, but she'd cross hell for me, and people ignore mules." Drew hugged her. "You might hang for this." "All going to hang one day, dearie. Better on our own rope than Caleb's." Dawn seeped across the horizon as Drew urged Sugarfoot down the Clifton road. The mule's ears flicked at every lizard squeak, but her pace never faltered. Drew's mind, however, ricocheted Silas's grin, Cade's rifle flash, Levi toppling images replaying until rage blurred them crimson. She forced breath deep, counted hoofbeats. The sun climbed, turning dust motes into flecks of burning copper. At 10 miles out, the ridge thickened with pinyon pine, the border of Marquette land and Apache Trust territory. War parties rarely prowled this close to settled track anymore. But drought made everyone bold and thirsty. Sugarfoot brayed suddenly. Ahead, a black feathered arrow quivered in the road sign pointing toward Clifton. At its base, a fresh carcass. Coyote shot through with a broadhead, body staked upright like macabre milepost. A warning. Drew slid from the saddle, scanned ridgelines. 2 shadows melted from the pine mescalero scouts, bows half drawn. She raised empty hands. Need to pass. Carry proof of water theft your side too. She patted the notebook. The taller scout stepped forward. He wore a U.S. cavalry cap, its insignia scorched away. Water theft white man talk. But water gone. Yes, his English carried iron-shaped rhythms. What price your proof? Share the report with your chief. Dam upstream robs Palmer River. Break dam water returns. Drew swallowed. Help me reach Clifton Wire, and you get blueprint. She sketched the valve layout in dustwith. A stick. Scouts consulted in Apache, then the shorter one plucked the arrow, snapped shaft in half, and tossed it aside. Pass, but scouts follow. If lie, bones dry in sun. Fair. She remounted. The mule snorted but obeyed. Clifton Station appeared midday. 3 telegraph poles, standing like lonely sentinels over a clapboard hut. Smoke rose from the chimney. Drew's heart lifted. Until she saw the horses. 6 double T paints tied railside, lather dried white on flanks. Cade's rifle. Storm's men ahead. The scouts melted into pines, arrows notched. Drew hitched Sugarfoot in brush and crept to a shattered window. Inside, the operator sat bound to his chair, mouth stuffed with blotter paper. Cade lounged against the relay cabinet, arm bandaged. Anger knitted between his brows. Leander Storm paced, telegram strips littering the floor. Nothing from Selway, nothing from Bisbee, the sheriff snarled. She right here. Quill's dead or dying, he won't protect her. Drew's pulse stuttered. Asterisk Silas, no time for grief. Rage, yes. Grief comes later. Cade spat tobacco. When she does, my rifle settles it for good. Sheriff shrugged. Caleb wants her breathing, but a corpse can't leak. He kicked the operator. Wires cut both directions, thanks to you. She's boxed. Drew backed away, brain sprinting, wire gone. Road blocked. But track still ran, the narrow gauge ore line hugging Palmer Gorge. If she could power a handcar. Clifton's relay office 15 miles downhill still ran line to Tucson. She signaled the scouts. 2 fingers to eyes. Tap heart, sweep west the. Universal watch me. Cover me. They acknowledged. A cold tender sat on the siding outside the hut, half full. A locked tool shed alongside. Drew's pick set made short work of the latch. Inside, sledge, crowbar, kerosene tins. And blasting caps in a padded crate. Ideas sparked wicked bright. Asterisk. Give Caleb a disaster so big, the governor can't ignore the smoke. Asterisk. She loaded kerosene tins and caps into a gunny sack, slung it over shoulder, then crawled beneath the rail car. Old coupler pin rusted but feasible. She wedged the crowbar, levered, sweated, cursed under breath. Finally, metal shrieked. The coal tender rolled free, leaving engine cab and posse's mounts the other side of hut. Drew scrambled onto the tender ladder, cracked the brake wheel until grease pinched her palm. The car began to roll, gentle as a cradle toward the downgrade. She coasted past the station platform, Cade's head snapping up as shadow crossed windows. Hey! He barked, rushing outside, just in time to see Drew atop the car, kerosene sack at her feet. Bridge ahead. She jammed brake, but momentum laughed steel wheels screaming. She rigged fuse, straw match clenched in teeth. River glittered far below, mocking, thirsty. A rifle shot sparked off tender rim. Cade, bleeding but relentless, pursued. On a paint horse, Leander beside him. 2 more riders trailed, but kept distance. Scouts peppered them from pines. Drew lit fuse. Flame hissed along copper wire toward kerosene pool. She vaulted over coal wall, landing on narrow footboard. Wind tore tears from her eyes. Another shot bullet skinned her boot heel. She leapt from the tender onto the track bank, rolling hard. Stones gashed elbows. Notebook jarred inside vest. She staggered upright, just as tender smashed aqueduct beam. Water roared overhead. Flame met vaporized fuel. Kathome. A fireball punched sky, blooming like desert thunderhead. The aqueduct split. A river's worth of stolen water crashed. Down, sweeping rails, tender, and Cade's charging horse into frothing void. Drew dove behind boulder as shockwave hissed. Steam scalded sage. She peered out. Spillway trough now a jagged stump puking torrents into the gorge. Tracks twisted like licorice. Cade's horse gone, Leander's mount rearing in terror. Leander spotted her, hate blazing in smoke, reddened. Eyes, he spurred forward, revolver drawn. Drew ran downhill path slick with mud. River thunder deafened pistol cracks. Twice stones spat near her boots. Third shot tore hat brim. She ducked into a slot canyon cut by newly freed water. Leander followed, cursing. The canyon dead ended at a plunge pool. Water churned brown, rising fast as broken dam surge loaded the gorge. Leander cornered her against the precipice. "Drop the gun, girl." His voice trembled from exertion and something deeper realization. Everything his brother built just washed away. Notebook 2. Drew held Colt steady. "River's climbing, Sheriff. Soon this crack fills. You'd trade your life for a ledger?" "Caleb's life." He gestured with barrel. "Toss it." Water slapped Drew's calves. She considered. Diving current might smash her against walls, but staying meant bullet. She faked a throw. Leander's gaze tracked the feint. She fired. Click. Misfire. Wet powder. Leander's revolver boomed. Pain lanced her thigh. Leg buckled. Colt fell. The sheriff stalked forward, triumphant sneer forming before arrow feathers blossomed from his shoulder. He spun, cursing. Second arrow thunked into hip. Scouts atop rim. Leander pivoted to shoot, but lost footing on slick stone. Pistol flying. He plunged backward into the churn, vanished. Drew sagged, river now waist high. Scouts lowered a lariat. She looped under arms. They hauled her coughing onto ledge above flood. Storm finished, the taller scout grunted, watching whirlpool claim badge and man alike. "Not yet," Drew rasped, clutching thigh. "Caleb still breathes." She glanced downstream where spillway torrent carved new channel straight toward Double C pastures. Next showdown rides with the flood. The scouts dressed her wound with yucca fiber and pine pitch. Pain flared bright enough to dull everything. "Else, you go home," the shorter scout advised. "War comes to valley, let rivers decide. Home is the valley." Drew tightened bandage. "And I still haven't made the report." Night reclaimed the sky by the time Drew limped onto Marquette Yard. Lanterns glowed in bunkhouse, more than 5 this time. Sam Pack rushed out, face creased with worry and hope when he saw her. Astride Sugarfoot, "Ezra's justice?" he asked in Canton lilted English. Half served. She slid down, nearly collapsing. Sam caught her, supported her to porch. Inside, Levi Guthrie's empty bunk bore fresh flowers, wild marigold, and Silas's sharps rested across 2 crates like an altar offering. Sam followed her gaze. "Found rifle near bluff. Blood trail vanished at creek." "No body." Drew touched the rifle's worn stock. "Means he's still out there, or the dessert took him quiet." She set notebook beside the gun. "Gather the hands." "At first." Light, we ride to Palmer Gorge. Flood's coming. We'll fight water with water. She moved to window, watched moonlight glimmer on distant river, now wildly alive. Somewhere beyond those hills, Caleb Storm would see his trough gone, his cattle bogging in mud, his empire washing south. A gust-rattled Shutterstorm front building behind liberated river. Drew squared shoulders, leg throbbing in rhythm with heart, * tomorrow. The whole territory learns what happens when you provoke the wrong person. * her fingers brushed Silas's rifle once more. Keep breathing out there, Quill, she whispered. I've still got a shot with your name on it. Outside, thunder rumbled, a new storm riding in on the wind, carrying vengeance, renewal, and all the stories still hungry for an ending. The night deepened, but somewhere in that darkness, Cade dragged himself from riverbank mud, teeth bared against pain, eyes fixed on the silver star low across the valley. He clutched a half dry fuse wire torn from the tender's wreck and smiled. The report isn't finished yet. He thought. High above, lightning forked, illuminating dry mesa in stark white, just long enough to show Drew's silhouette at the bunkhouse door, rifle in hand, staring straight at the place where dread gathered like storm cloud. The storm cracked so loud the valley lights flickered, and everything went black. Dawn bled rose gold across dry mesa, tinting the newborn river a color that seemed impossible after so many months of dust. Drusilla Marquette stood on the porch rail of the bunkhouse, weight balanced on her good leg, Winchester braced beneath elbow, and watched the flood she had loosed snake southward through stands of willow that had not tasted real current in years. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it tasted like iron and ash. The scouts who'd hauled her from the canyon pool had vanished with the moon, leaving only blood-brown boot prints beside the bunkhouse steps. Their parting gift, a woven pouch of mezcal buttons for pain, and a fragment of advice * water is strong, but people break faster. * Drew took one button at sunrise, ground it between molars, and waited for its slow heat to climb her spine. When it reached the bullet furrow in her thigh, she breathed easier. But the heat never touched the ache buried deeper than flesh. Levi's slack face in lantern glow. Silas disappearing into rifle flash. The moment the Colt clicked empty. Sam Pack set a tin mug on the porch rail. Steam curled in the chill dawn. Bone broth, he said, gives tendon new thread. She managed half a smile. You think I need mending? Sam's dark eyes flicked from bloody bandage to the river. Rope frays fastest right after it holds weight. Seen too many snaps same morning they saved the calf. Drew nodded, sipping. The broth tasted of star anise and marrow, warm enough to push the mezcal fire a notch higher. Below, the yard bustled. 10 hands now, sleeping bags slung over shoulders. Saddle cinches checked, rifle bolts oiled. Word of the dam's ruin must have galloped through every saloon and sheep camp overnight. Men who drifted off returned like geese to thawed marsh, lured by the promise of wages and a cause finally worth the bullet. ***, Drew moved like a commander who had never known doubt. ***, issuing assignments in crisp prairie cadence. Rayfand. Hernan, upstream, check clear debris before it jams the irrigation gate. Judith, take 3 and shore the south fence where runoff cut the draw. The rest mount scouting Pear's eyes on double C movement. She saved Levi's roan gelding for herself. Slinging Silas's sharps across the saddle horn felt wrong-like. Wearing boots too fine for mucking pens, but her Winchester could not match the sharps for reach. And today reach mattered. Caleb Storm would wake to drowned corrals and suffocating cattle. A desperate man on ruined ground always shot first. * 3 miles north. Double C headquarters lay in disarray. * Caleb Storm stared at his empire through field glasses smudged with ash. 2/3 of the upper pasture set under 3 feet of muck-brown water. Herefords bawled from fence corners where current piled tumbleweed against rails. The brand new 3-story hay barn his boast to every banker in Clifton leaned drunkenly. Lower footings washed out. Caleb ground glass to eyes until rims cut skin. He wanted to blame lightning, sabotage, Apache devils, anything except his brother's failure and Cade's incompetence. But the truth hammered each breath. Drusilla Marquette, that mule-stubborn woman with half a herd's worth of grit, had outgunned him using nothing but a runaway coal car and nerve dot behind. Him, Cade limped from the bunkhouse porch, fresh shirt half-buttoned, bandaged thighs stiff. He looked paler than dawn milk, but hate kept him upright. 63 had drowned, he reported. 20 more mired belly, deep in a few hours' sun bakes them clay. Caleb lowered glasses. Any sign she got the wire through? Telegraph. Lines dead. Clifton Station burned to studs. Cade's jaw tightened. But Selway or Tucson might relay once they clear debris. We assume word leaks. Caleb spat. We assume nothing. We choke leak at the throat. He paced. You said Quill caught a slug. Cade's eyes gleamed. Saw him Fall River took him. Even if scavengers find carcass, water-bleached brand from hide, means Marquette stands alone. Caleb's smile spread slow, Wolf-wide. 1. Ranch against flood and guns, we finish it tonight. Cade fingered the singed fuse wire he'd salvaged as souvenir and blueprint. Have plan. Take 6 men with nerve and 1 keg powder. Caleb barked a mirthless laugh. After last night? They'll have more nerve than sense. He waved toward drowned pasture. Gather survivors. We ride before sundown. Asterisk back. On Marquette land, the river kept climbing, bringing both relief and risk. Asterisk. Noondrew guided the gelding along new cut banks, mapping where irrigation ditches once trickled. Now they roared. She penciled notes. Add culvert at draw 2, widen levee east, then wobbled when mescal faded and pain stabbed anew. Judith reined alongside, eyes sharp beneath hat brim. You're running on fumes, boss. Runnings. Enough, Drew prodded the gelding forward. Any double key sightings? Judith's jaw ticked. Smoke plumes North Ridge barn burn off maybe, or signal. She lowered voice. Lookouts say they saw riders mustering mid-morning. Numbers? Hard to tell through haze, maybe 20. 20 meant Caleb scraped every able body not chasing fence rails. Drew's 10 hands plus 3 green youths could not face 20 seasoned riders. But each scouting pair reported. Townsfolk primed to pick sides. Drought had thinned patience. Water theft starved more than cattle. Spread word before dusk, Drew said. Anyone who ever drank Palmer water can stand with us or watch storm drown the valley for good. Judith grinned, teeth white against wind-cracked lips. They'll come. Nothing unites like a bully cornered. Asterisk many valleys east. Silas Quill woke in a cave smelling of pin and smoke and wet dog. Asterisk. Pain pinned him down first every breath a rasp across broken ribs, then heat-ragged blankets, fire embers. Finally light slim wedge through limestone crack. He tried sitting. A spear of agony anchored him to bedroll. He cursed. The cursing drew a shadow. An old mescalero woman with storm-gray braid and eyes the color of nopal cactus. She studied him as one might a fractured pot curious if glue or hammer deserved. Reach, you brought me? He rasped. She ignored question. Pressed earthen cup to his lips. Bitter liquid stung tongue, then glowed down his throat. Cough turned to laugh. Tastes like horse piss steeped in rattler guts. She answered with a single English word, heavy with accent. Live. Silas drifted under Drew's hush. Memories surfaced. Bluff firefight, Drew's eyes laced with terror, rifle flash. He had staggered east, blood trailing, until knees folded by river. Scouts may be the same pair hauled him to this refuge. Why spare him? Maybe because he stood against dam that choked their water dot when he next woke twilight stains painted cave mouth. Ribs still screamed, but limbs obeyed. He found his sharps propped near fire, barrel cleaned, action oiled. Beside it lay a sealed hide pouch. The notebook Drew had dropped? No, this felt heavier. He untied thong. Inside, 6 brass cartridges, .50 sharps, each hand etched with mescalero glyphs. Blessings or curses, didn't matter. They fit the chamber. He croaked thanks, but cave stood empty. Outside, the liberated river sang loud. Urgent, Silas pushed to feet, strapped rifle, and stepped into dusk. Every bone warned against ride. Every memory urged quicker. He followed horse prints to a buckskin mar, left hobbled under cedar. A rawhide note on saddle horn bore a single word of Apache syllabary meaning asterisk. Oh, asterisk. He swung up, vision swirling. Reckon I do. He nudged Mare west toward Marquette lights. Asterisk twilight draped the valley when Caleb's column appeared. On skyline black silhouettes tinted fire by setting sun. Asterisk Drew stood atop the water tower catwalk, spyglass fixed. Pain pulsed, but adrenaline iced it. She counted riders, 23, including Caleb at 4 and Cade limping astride a liver chestnut. At rear rumbled a buckboard wagon. Tarpaulin bulged around keg shapes. She lowered glass. Sam Pack. Below cranked signal bell, salvaged from bridgeline clang, 2 long, 1 short. Men and women emerged from every outbuilding. She counted 31 defenders, now half townsfolk carrying squirrel guns or pitchforks. But courage weighed too. Caleb's line halted 100 yards beyond outer corral. Dust swirled around hooves like stage curtains. He rode forward alone. White gloves stark against reins. Cade trailed 6 lengths back, eyes burning under brim. Drew descended ladder slow but sure. Each rung jarred thigh a promise the wound remained open. At base, Judith handed her Silas's sharps. Ranch votes you take first shot if talking fails. Talking never fails, Drew said, chambering round. Just delays truth. She limped through gate, stopping 20 paces beyond. Sam flanked. Her shotgun broken open across arm. Behind, defenders lined fence, faces lit by torches thrust into sod. Caleb reined in, tipping hat. Miss Marquette, lovely evening to discuss reparations. Thought we'd skip pleasantries, she called. Flood did enough repairing. His smile barely flicked. Yes, you washed half my herd downhill. Tragic accident or sabotage. Territorial judge will decide after you hang. Judge might ask why your dam lacked permits. She tapped notebook under vest. Or why your gun had murdered Ezra Tulliver and the kid Levi. Cartridge. Casings tell stories. Stories need witnesses. Caleb's gaze flicked past her to the gathered crowd. But fear twists tongues. Whole valleys scared Drew. They need firm hand. He rotated in saddle so his voice carried. Stand aside and no harm. Remain and wildfire claims every shingle. A nervous murmur ran the line. Caleb straightened. Last offer. Drew lifted sharps to shoulder, not aiming yet, but threat plain. You started a war over water, Caleb. It ends here, river decides. River's mine to bend. He jerked rein. Riders advanced. Buckboard rattled forward, Cade atop. Drew's stomach chilled powder kegs. Targets the tower, Judith. Hissed at fence. Blow water higher than dam did. Drew snapped rifle to cheek. Sight hovered on Cade's chest. She breathed slow, remember Silas's lesson. Lightning predictable. Cade raised fuse coil shot, crashed from hillside left. Cade jerked, shoulders spinning. Fuse flew. Valley echoed second report. Silas Quill emerged on ridge, sharp smoking. Buckskin mare quivering beneath him. Looks like I missed the party. He hollered, voice ragged but alive. Mind if I cut in? Relief punched Drew's lungs so hard she nearly tipped. She recovered, fired bullets shattered wagon's lead keg. Black powder fountained. Cade, wounded but furious, lit short match. Flung at Spark, arced toward, spilled powder. Drew screamed. Down! Silas fired again. Bullet struck match mid-air. Spark snuffed. Gasps rippled. Cade roared, drawing revolver. Silas chambered new glyph etched round. Cade ducked behind keg pile. Caleb spurred horse, brandishing carbine. Then from Rivers. Direction thundered a new sound. Water, louder than earlier flow. All eyes turned. A wall of muddy current barreled along irrigation ditch, cresting levee breached by afternoon chopping. It surged toward Double C Rider's flank. Chaos ignited. Horses reared, riders scattered. Powder wagon lurched, axle snapping, kegs tumbling into slurry. Caleb yelled retreat, but Cade ignored. He charged water tower base, rope and fuses clutched. Drum of hoofbeats masked his advance. Drew spun, heart slamming. Tower held the ranch's only high pressure. Reserve, lose it and corrals would parch within days. She bolted after Cade, legs screaming rebellion, saw him dismount, scramble up ladder one-handed. Sam, cover, she barked. Sam knelt, laid shotgun across fence, pumping twin shells toward riders trying to regroup. Drew slung sharps, grabbed lower rungs and climbed. Blood-seeped thigh bandage, hot trails. Above, Cade clattered up, tying fuse lengths as he climbed. Halfway she heard Silas shout her name. He had spotted the race. But gunfire pinned him. Caleb's best marksman finally found aim. Catwalk swayed under dual weight. Cade reached tank rim, wedged powder cylinder against timber brace, began unspooling fuse. Cade, Drew yelled, surfacing over lip. He spun. Eyes wild, blood from earlier arrow wound soaking sleeve. He laughed. Lightning's back, dear dove. He mocked, echoing Silas's pet name. She leveled sharps point blank, but Cade looped fuse around post between them. A firebreak of hemp. One spark and rifle shot meant equal death. Below, Caleb regrouped riders, pushing them toward gate. Under covering fire. Defenders faltered, ammunition thin. Cade struck match. Goodbye, bartender's girl. Wind gusted, almost snuffed flame. Cade shielded it, eyes narrowing, a distant boom. Silas firing uphill. Bullet tore support. Bracket. Tower lurched, Cade staggered. Match fell. Vanished. But a single ember kissed fuse. Orange serpent sizzled toward powder. Drew lunged, tackling Cade. They rolled across catwalk, shoulders banging rails. Her wound screamed. Fuse hissed inches away. Cade clawed knife. Drew seized wrist. Blade flashed, slicing her sleeve. She head-butted. His jawbone cracked. Cade jerked back. Half-conscious. Fuse reached powder keg. Drew had one heartbeat to decide. Kick keg over rim to explode mid-air, saving tower, but torching yard or tier fuse. Praying timing gave margin. She chose the impossible third. Bodily shield powder, smother flame. She dove, smashing palm onto ember. Pain like molten glass shot through nerves. But fuse sputtered out beneath skin. Silence. Only groan of timbers and distant river roar. Cade wheezed, spitting blood. You can't stop us all. She rose, fist clenched around blackened hemp. Watch me. She drove knee into his gut, sending him sliding along plank until boots hung over nothing. Below, Caleb's men had breached gate. Gunfire erupted near barn. Silas galloped toward melee, shouting rally. Drew hauled Cade upright, cuffed belt strap through ladder rung. Hang there, watch river burn your lies. She snatched powder keg, heaved across catwalk to tank's far side safe. But another fuse crackled. Cade had looped second line beneath decking. Spark raced unseen until thwump, tiny flare. Licked timber inside tower leg. Fire climbed oily grain fast. Drew shouted down. Sam saw, bellowed orders. Men ran with buckets, but tower's height mocked them. Wind shifted, flames licked toward. Main tank under her feet. She looked to ladder blocked by Cade's dangling form. Other side offered service ladder, but she'd need cross roof. Timbers popped. Water sloshed inside tank, their last reserve. Below, Caleb's army and ranch defenders clashed dust, gunfire, floodwater merging in nightmarish tapestry. Tower lurched again. Bolts groaned. Drew felt structure choose which way to fall. She drew breath hot with smoke, scanned yard seeking Silas there, reloading behind wheeled feed cart, hat brim torn, but alive. As if sensing, he looked up, eyes meeting hers across chaos. Catwalk rail charred through. Drew's boots slipped, sparks spraying. She screamed his name just as the tower's western legs buckled. Plunging tank, powder, Drew, and Cade toward the fight below, and the night lit white as God's own lightning. Hash. The sky erupted before the ground did. For one impossible heartbeat, Drusilla Marquette floated inside a globe of incandescent dusk, the ruptured water tower bursting outward in a halo of steam. Cedar splinters and white-hot powder sparks. Sound vanished. Sight paired itself to slow, turning fragments. A plank cartwheeling. Cade's hat sailing like a scorched crow. Droplets of precious water catching sunset light, each perfect for less than a breath. Then gravity remembered its debt. The catwalk. Under Drew's boots tore away. Air slammed past, sucking her scream into the wider roar. Cade spun beside her, limbs thrashing. The Sharp's rifle ripped free of its sling and vanished upward as if choosing freedom over fate. The first explosion black powder keg smashing water did not kill her. It cushioned the fall, blowing a geyser that hurled Drew sideways into a muddy trough seconds before the main tank collapsed. 10,000 gallons punched earth where she'd stood, quenching flame, shattering Caleb Storm's charge line, and baptizing every combatant in a scalding rain that smelled of cedar and gun oil. Cade hit the barn roof. Slate shingles cracked. He skidded the slope, hit a gutter, then disappeared over the far edge with a bone-snapping thud even the roar could not hide. Soldiers of fortune, ranch hands, townsfolk, and opportunists alike froze in that deluge. Rifles lowered, torches sputtered, horses reared, and the valley itself seemed to hush listening to the last wooden beams groan and topple. Silas Quill reached Drew first. He splashed through ankle-deep water, ignoring the hail of smoking debris. She lay half-submerged, eyes glazed, thigh bandage peeled away to expose a crimson river. When he touched her shoulder, pain sliced a moan from her lips. "Still here, Dove," he rasped, half laugh, half prayer. "Told you lightning's predictable, you just read the flash." She blinked, found his dirt-streaked face, and forced speech through grit. "Cade?" Rode a splinter to hell. Might still be breathing, but not well. Silas knelt, hands fluttering uselessly before pressing hard on the reopened bullet groove. Blood welled through fingers. "We've got to stop this before you bleed out." Drew tried to sit, managed an inch. "Caleb?" They both looked. Across the churned yard, Caleb Storm sat astride a gray stallion, water streaming from hat. Brim. His men milled, half blind in steam. The wagon burned where powder once sat, but most kegs lay scattered. Soaked harmless. Judith vaulted the corral fence with two others, seizing the moment. "Push 'em back," she cried. Shot. Cracked. One of Caleb's riders dropped, hat rolling like a wheel. The defenders rallied, bolstered by the elements' sudden betrayal of their enemy. Caleb recovered faster than his men. He wheeled Gray toward Drew's trough, spurs biting. Rage sculpted new lines on his face, turning him from ranch baron to butcher king. Silas saw and rose, rifleless but not empty-handed. He drew his Colt-a-pop gun compared to the Sharps and fired twice. The bullets sparked off Caleb's breastplate, belt buckle ornamental brass, thick enough to deflect lead at this range. The Gray screamed but kept charging. Time collapsed. Into blur, Sam Pack leapt from porch with wood axe raised. A double C gun hand shot him through the arm. Sam spun, axe flying end over end to bury in Caleb's stallion's shoulder. Beast shrieked, stumbled. Caleb flew forward, hit mud, rolled, came up with carbine leveled, and Drew fired the Winchester she had refused to surrender to gravity. She did not remember drawing. Only that the shot echoed strange inside half-deaf ears and Caleb's. Carbine jerked sideways, stock shattered. The rifle notched her kill count by 0. She had aimed for the weapon, not the man, and that choice would shape everything that followed. Caleb spat, grabbed dropped revolver, and fired back. The slug clipped Drew's hat-sack and brim, lost tonight, then plowed into trough timber behind. Silas tackled her as second shot smacked water inches from her cheek. "Fall back," came Judith's voice. "Drag her out." But retreat was impossible now. Caleb's men rallied behind their fallen boss, pouring fire. The defenders scattered, some diving into fresh craters, others taking cover behind the drowned wagon. Lightning forked above the mesa, real this time, chasing thunder that hammered mountains. Rain followed, first sparse, then drumming, turning battlefield mud into glue. The Mescalero scouts watched from the cottonwoods beyond East Fence. When the water tower fell, they nodded to each other. The white woman had shifted the river. Now she fought men still clinging to old drought ways. The scouts disappeared into rain. Caleb advanced, eyes locked on Drew. He reloaded effortlessly, practice chiseled into bone. Silas knelt between them, empty Colt raised. Caleb's smile twitched. Pity for lesser gun. Drew touched Silas's boot with fingers slick red. "Gun," she whispered, holding the Winchester out. Silas swapped weapons without looking, rolling left to retrieve sharps half buried beneath charred beam. Rain blinded, rifle stock slick. Caleb fired. Drew's calf seared as bullets striped. "Flesh," she fired back. Her slug punched through Caleb's thigh high and clean. He grunted, stumbled, but stayed upright, hate alone bracing bone. Silas surfaced with sharps, but muddy. He cycled, glyph etched round, sighted Caleb, and lightning struck the mangled tower column. Sparks showered, steel sang, and the sharps' coarse sights flashed white. Silas flinched. The shot went high, shaving Caleb's hat instead of skull. Caleb laughed through blood-flecked teeth. He produced second revolver and leveled both at Drew and Silas. "All ends," he growled. Thunder muffling words. "Yours first," came a voice behind him, Judith. Her rifle rested half an inch from Caleb's ear. Caleb froze. She thumbed. "Hammer. Drop them." His fingers opened. Revolvers sank into mud. Silas shoved to feet, sharp steady. Drew exhaled long, pain fading behind adrenaline's third wave. "Lotta bodies today, Storm," Silas said, voice ragged. "No need add yours. Call your men off." Caleb's gaze flicked around. His riders pinned behind half-fallen barn by townsfolk, now reinforced by Sam's shotgun blasts. Cade lay out of sight. The powder kegs, soaked, smoked, but would not ignite. Empire undone by water, and he raised hands slow. "Stand down," he yelled. Some riders obeyed. Two threw rifles, raising palms. Others bolted for North Fence, disappearing into night and flood. Judith cuffed Caleb's wrists with rope cut from saddle trace. "For Sheriff Leanders." "Murder," she intoned. "For Ezra Tulliver, for Levi." She jerked tight, earning grunt. Drew sagged back against trough. Rain plastered hair to face. Each heartbeat hammered wound edges. Silas knelt, ripping shirt to tourniquet her calf. "Stay with me," he pleaded. She nodded, but eyes closed. Hours later, storm eased into weary drizzle. Barn fires smoldered. Defenders collected weapons, bound prisoners, and lined them under porch eaves. Sam's arm bandaged. He supervised coffee boiling from salvage stove. Judith counted ammunition, her rifle never far. Inside ranch house parlor, Drew lay on settee, skirts cut to thigh. Doc Green, summoned from town by a rider who braved the flood, examined her wounds by lantern light. "Bullet grazed muscle," he said, sewing calf. "Leg will heal." But thigh gash deep infected already. You'll need laudanum and rest. Rest after Caleb hangs, she muttered. Silas sat nearby, ribs wrapped with Sam's spare linen. He flipped a glyph cartridge, staring at snake-etched brass. Governor's gotta know by now flood reached Clifton. Telegraph may be fixed. Drew turned head. Still have notebook. Ride at dawn. You take it, Silas. I stay. He frowned. Valley heals faster with you delivering truth. Doc Green cut in. Neither of you ride until fever drops. The argument died when Judith entered, face grim. Cade's alive. They found him in Cattle Chute, leg twisted under beam. Jaw swollen. 2 men rolled beam aside. Cade gasped, but eyes burned. Deal, he hissed. Trade me for Storm Air, Caleb, Judith snorted. Caleb's staying for trial. Cade spat blood. Caleb has friends. Judge Pinkertons. But I have ledger books Caleb kept on damn bribes. You'll never convict without. Silas. Cocked head. Where? Vault under Double Z bunkhouse floor. Combination Storm Mother's birthday. Nobody but me knows digits. Rain tapped tin roof. Doc Green met Drew's eyes. She swallowed laudanum taste. County court sits in 10 days. We need that ledger. Judith folded arms. You trust Snake? He wants out, Silas said. Snake's skin changes. For survival, Drew considered. Cade's testimony plus ledger could seal Caleb's fate. But escorting Cade across flooded valley risked ambush from Storm loyalists. And every hour lost increased infection in her leg. Midnight ride. She said finally, Silas, Judith, Sam take Cade to bunkhouse, retrieve ledger. I hold ranch, Silas objected. Doc objected. Drew silenced them with raised palm. No more towers to fall tonight. My fight shifts to fever. Cade grinned through cracked lips. You'll never get near vault. Riders loyal to Storm still guard. Judith smiled back, cold as moon. That's why we bring lightning. She patted Silas's sharps. Asterisk, 3 hours before dawn, a small party slipped from Marquette. Yard. Asterisk Silas rode the buckskin. Judith on Levi's roan. Sam, his wounded arm lashed to chest, drove a 2-mule cart where Cade lay bound, yet somehow smug. Rain faded to mist. Stars peeked through gaps dotted river crossing. They found water risen above wheel hubs. Sam muttered. Canton curses, urging mules. Current shoveled against spokes, but cart rolled on. They left Sam and cart hidden in willow brake. Cade limped with them, hands tied but feet free enough to walk. He coached path through tall ryegrass to rear of milk shed. Silas peeked. 2 guards dozing under eave. Rain logged, rifles leaning. Judith unsheathed Bowie. They advanced, thunder cracked not sky, but rifle. A guard behind smokehouse spotted them, fired warning. Camp erupted. Loud it is, Silas muttered, raising sharps. Bullets sliced rye. Judith dragged Cade behind stone cistern. Silas fired once glyph cartridge screamed, hitting smokehouse stove pipe. Red-hot iron launched like lance, piercing guard's chest. Men shouted devil talk. Sam, hearing chaos, whipped mules into yard cart bursting through hedge. He loosed single shotgun blast, washing porch of defenders. Silas and Judith sprinted bunkhouse. Inside, 3 more gun hands scrambled from beds. Judith dropped first with gutshot. Silas butt stroked second. The third tackled Cade, thinking. To use hostage. Cade head butted him, screaming. Shoot him, fools! Judith obliged. Silas found iron stove, heaved it aside. Boards pried up revealing trapdoor. Cade recited combination with glee. Silas spun dials or thunked. Inside. Ledgers bound calf-hide. Stacks of letters, a pouch of minted gold. Judith stuffed ledgers in burlap. Sam at doorway shouted new trouble. Reinforcements from East Paddock 6 riders charging. Torches lit. They fled rear as bullets punched. Walls. Cade hobbled after, free hand clutching the gold pouch. Silas noted, but saved breath. They reached cart. Sam cracked reins. Wheels spun through muck. Riders pursued, shooting. Silas over shoulder fired Sharp's another glyph round. Horse collapsed mid-gallop, sending 2 riders tumbling. The rest balked, skidding a corpse slick mud. Cade laughed manic. Storm's gold buys freedom. Judith yanked pouch away. Evidence. Shots from hillside spattered cart. Silas scoped. A lone figure, a woman sniping with Caleb's engraved carbine. Caleb's younger sister, perhaps. No time to wonder. Sharps boomed. The figure vanished behind Hayrack. They barreled through ford, river up to axle. Wheels lifted, floated. Sam whipped mules until hooves found bottom. Dawn painted clouds blood when they reached Marquette Gate. Green met them, relief shifting to concern, her fever climbs and visitors. He nodded at Cottonwood Grove, where 6 Mescalero elders waited, including the gray-haired woman who saved Silas. Silas handed Doc the ledger sack. Enough to bury Storm. He limped inside. Drew lay bathed in sweat. Her eyes cracked open at his scent. Got it? She whispered. He held up ledgers. Snake kept word. She smiled faintly, then noticed elders. They ask for me. Doc protested. Silas helped her sit, wrapped in quilt. 2 men bore travois between them, carved from river split willow, lined rabbit fur. The gray elder stepped forward. Water carries promise, she said. But promise leaks if vessel cracks. We mend, she gestured to travois. Drew looked to Silas. He nodded. Trust earned by rivers. She allowed them to lift her onto travois. They bound quilt, then bore her toward Grove. Silas followed. Until gray woman raised hand. Alone, she said. Shadow cannot heal under watcher's eye. He hesitated, but Drew mouthed trust. She disappeared into trees. Sun climbed. Prisoners were loaded into wagons for Clifton. Jail territorial marshals had arrived after seeing flood and hearing citizen affidavits. Caleb Storm remained bound in Marquette's cellar pending escort. His eyes smoldered. Silas packed Drew's notebook, ledgers, cartridge casings into oilskin. He planned ride to Tucson Telegraph tomorrow. Night came. Drew did not return. At midnight Silas approached Grove. A fire glowed within. Drums beat slow, heartbeat pace. Voices sang in a patchy minor key. He stepped forward, but 2 braves crossed spears blocking path. Not yet. One said. Lightning flickered distant over mesa, followed by rumble. Silas waited, heart knotted. Sharps across knees. Inside the grove. Drew lay beside the singing rock, an ancient basalt boulder inscribed with water glyphs. Vapors infused with spruce and peyote swirled around. The gray elder traced salve of piñon pitch and ground mezcal buttons onto Drew's thigh, chanting to river spirits. The wound burned, then cooled, then seemed to open inward, memory spilling. Ezra smiling as he loaded mule wagon. Levi's laugh. During poker, her father teaching irrigation furrow. Silas's first awkward hat tip. The endless thirst of drought. The crashing tower. Cade's match. Images flowed until they became water, cleansing guilt and anger. When hush fell, she slept without fever, pre-dawn light painted trunk silver. The elders dismantled camp, leaving only stone and embers. Silas dozed against Cottonwood root, waking as footsteps, RUSTL, ED. Drew emerged, walking with cane fashioned from juniper, bandage clean and new. Eyes clear. Silas exhaled shaky laugh. Look fresh as sunrise. Feel like river after flood, she answered. Still. Muddy but moving. They returned to yard where marshals waited. Caleb Storm was let out in irons. He paused before Drew, sneer clipped by exhaustion. A river dries, Marquette. Sun always wins. She met his gaze. So does justice. He barked dry laugh as marshals prodded him onto wagon. Green signed transfer papers. Trial set. 2 weeks hence in Tucson, need complaining witness. He looked at Drusilla, shook head. She'll be there. But Drew's eyes drifted beyond horizon where Double T pastures still drowned and where other valleys still thirsted. First, we rebuild levees, bury dead, thank waters. That afternoon, a rider barreled in dusty, frantic. Telegraph from Selway Rail Baron Milton Gray buys storm debt, sends private army to reclaim assets. Silas cursed. Drew tightened grip on Kane. What's a rail baron want with parched cattle land? Judith asked. Not cattle, Drew murmured. Railroad needs water for steam engines across desert. Storm promised river. She looked to Sharp's rifle leaning on porch, to ledger sack heavy with proof, to distant smoke of locomotives snaking toward valley. Battle isn't done, she said. Silas smiled wryly. Lightning's predictable, remember, she returned smile, eyes sparking. Then we'd better read the flash. Thunder rumbled far off, train wheels on iron, or storm rebuilding, nobody yet saw. Wind off the newly freed Palmer carried the smell of wet clay, mesquite blossoms, and distant locomotive soot, the valley's sweet and sour breath mingling under a sun already packing July heat. It was 2 days after Caleb Storm's arrest, and yet the market spread looked less like a victor's camp and more like a city under siege. Drusilla watched from the bunkhouse porch, cane tucked under her good arm as Sam Pack directed a double file of townsfolk along the rebuilt levee, each person passing quarried stone down the line with the methodical rhythm of miners panning for gold. If the levee failed twice, the whole ranch would sink into slurry. But if it held, if it could keep the Palmer coursing true through the valley's center, then the ranch might survive whatever thunder was rolling their way on iron wheels. To the south, Judith and 24 volunteers erected a triangular barricade of railroad ties and scrap iron across the old Drover's Road. Silas Quill sat atop the barricade's highest beam, legs dangling and rifle slung like it weighed nothing despite cracked ribs, issuing suggestions that sounded more like friendly insults than orders. The hands, knowing his aim could snip a burlap string at 300 yards, took each jab as confirmation they were stacking the right angles. Drew breathed in the moment. She tasted mortality. Yes, blood still lined the gutters where the tower came down, but she also tasted unity, the savory aroma of chili bubbling in a cauldron over Sam's fire, the percussive bounce of hammers against rails, the low hush of Apache chants drifting in from the cottonwood grove where the elders had lingered to bless the valley's new water. But behind all that rose the bitter tang of coal smoke, faint but unmistakable. Somewhere west, across the desert flats, the rail baron Milton Gray was stoking engines, hitching troop cars, and polishing the brass on a private guard corps sworn to reclaim what the storms had lost. Doc Green closed the ranch house door behind him, wiping laudanum residue from his hands. Caleb's transport team is half a day out, he reported. They'll take him direct to Tucson. Judge fast-tracked the indictment after telegrams poured in. Looks like your ledgers lit a big enough fire. He paused, eyeing Drew's leg. You should be in bed. She flexed the thigh, feeling the juniper canes rasp beneath her palm. Can't lead a valley flat on quilts, Doc. She nodded toward the levee. Every stone they place buys us minutes when Gray's men ride. Doc rubbed tired eyes. Minutes, not hours? Silas hopped off the barricade and ambled over, catching that last line. Gray's schedule's no secret, southbound limited. Leaves Selway tonight. 10 cars flagged private. Pinkerton flunkies, maybe a small field piece if rumors are true. Judith joined them, sweat darkening her collar. Telegraph says Gray bought half-storm debt notes before Caleb's cuffs. Cooled. He'll claim lien law gives him right to secure the collateral, meaning everything the Palmer touches. Drew felt rage simmer. Collateral's people, too. And no law lets a private army cross sovereign ranch lines with artillery. Silas spat over rail. Law's a switchblade dove, cuts whatever hand's holding the handle. Doc changed subject. Governor wired, the marshal's escort can't spare men to defend here. Territory stretched thin by border skirmishes. You'll have to hold until judge rules. Then we hold, Drew said, brooking no argument. #1 Gray's Manifest. Night sagged heavy over the desert when the Selway Limited rumbled from its siding. 10 glossy Pullman cars sheathed in midnight blue paint and trimmed in gold leaf that winked beneath telegraph pole shadows. In the rear car's observation deck, Milton Gray sipped chilled champagne, reading the Tucson Daily Sentinel headline, "Clifton Dam Out Water Rights in Dispute." He tapped article with ivory-handled walking stick. A nation of fools. He mused to his aide, Algernon P. Dwyer, a man whose mustache looked like spun silver wire. They bicker over water when rails are the true veins of empire. Dwyer adjusted pants nez. Local sentiment appears to favor Marquette. She's become a folk heroine, Gray chuckled. Heroines die when ballads fade. Rails endure. He glanced out at endless black dotted by watch fires where survey crews camped. This valley will refuel my locomotives, whether they cheer or weep. In the adjacent car, 40 Pinkerton men cleaned Spencer carbines. 3 Gatling guns leaned in crates marked farm tools. #2, the deputation of Sparks at dawn. Drew gathered every capable soul in the saloon built from this Barnes salvage and mapped their stand. Candle stubs ringed a crude charcoal sketch of the valley. Levee lines, Cottonwood Grove, barricades, pivot points. Gray rolls in on rail, she said, pointing at the spur that ended north of town. From there, 8 miles of grade to our gate. She drew arrows. We slow them here make Gray pay minutes for every yard. Silas tapped the last choke point, a narrow cut between Widow Rock and Palmer Cliff. If we drop stone face there, track gums for weeks, but dynamite's scarce. Sam produced 3 red wax cylinders. Found these in powder wagon soaked. But dry now, Judith frowned. Wet nitro's unstable. Could blow whiskers off your soul if you look cross-eyed. Silas grinned. Good thing I shaved. Drew outlined assignments. Sam leads a ditch crew to undercut Southern track tie stealth. Not sabotage. 1 mule tap and rails, sink. Judith commands watchers on Widow Rock. Rolling boulders requires rope anchors pre-placed before Gray's scouts appear. Silas and a hand-picked sniper unit hold Cottonwood Grove, cross-ranging the spur approach. Drew takes reserve squad town carpenters, ranch cooks, even schoolteacher Miss Reinhardt, and mans the barricade. Non-combatants shelter in limestone cellar, Drew finished. If Gray's men breach, blow lantern, flood cellar with smoke, they'll assume fire and steer clear. Doc raised brow. And you? Last out as always. Silas caught her eye. You sure legs ready? She leaned Kane aside and shifted weight onto both boots. Pain flickered but held. Ready enough. ***, this story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. #3 The Governor's Wire ***, mid-afternoon. A rider arrived waving telegram. The governor, impressed by eyewitness testimonies, ordered a neutrality inquest. Territorial militia would accompany judge in 5 days. Drew exhaled. If they lasted 5 days, law might prevail, but 5 days under siege felt like a century. #4 Night of the Jack-o'-lanterns. Gray's train whistled at moonrise, steam plume reflecting silver. As it slowed near the sabotage ditch, engineers saw lanterns hanging from Cottonwood's hundreds, swaying like spectral fruit. Every third lantern contained a scorpion tail of blasting powder, rigged to spark on impact. Silas's snipers ignited fuses by rifle shot, sending lanterns tumbling. Pinkertons mistook the burst of light for gunfire and returned volley at ghosts. Their bullets fractured glass, showering fusillades of sparks onto engine cowcatcher exactly as Silas planned. Flames licked oiled planks. Engineers killed throttle. Gray stepped onto ballast, cane tapping. He surveyed sabotage ditch a shallow 2-foot sink where ties sagged. Child's play, he snorted. He waved half his men forward on foot while repair crew fetched timber. That's when Sam's ditch team cut final shovel of sand beneath rails. Weighted by troops, the track collapsed into watery trench, sending 8 Pinkertons sprawling in Gatling crates, somersaulting nose first. Wet natro from Sam's dynamite stash followed, tossed by hidden Apache allies. The blast lifted ties and men into a fire hollow visible from the ranch house. Drew, watching, whispered a prayer. 1 Gatling gone, but 2 remained. Gray regrouped. He ordered disembark, leave train, march valley on foot. Dwyer protested they had artillery. Gray silenced him with stick tap. 1 Gatling at Widow Rock cut, 1 on flank press them until dawn. 5 The long hour by 3 a.m., Gray's column navigated Widow Rock Pass. Judith's crew rolled first boulder 3 tons of basalt, just as moon slipped behind clouds. The rock crushed vanguard scouts, but second Gatling opened, turning. Cliff face into spark spit. Judith's rope anchor snapped. Second boulder teetered, stuck. She signaled fallback. Gray advanced, losses acceptable. Drew's barricade flickered into view at valley mouth, rail ties spiked with pitchforks, wagon. Wheels chained. Gray formed skirmish line. Pinkertons leveled Spencer's. Inside barricade, Drew counted heartbeats. Silas crouched on barn loft with sharps. Apache archers ghosted along levee banks. Sam loaded last 2 shells. Gray stepped forward alone, voice carrying. Marquette, you trespass on corporate claim. Relinquish ledger and water rights or face consequences. Drew climbed parapet. Fire burns ledger, Gray, but not truth. Territory judge arrives 5 days. Stand down. Gray laughed. Judges write verdicts, but history writes itself in iron. I am the track. Surrender or perish. He raised hand. Gatling crew cranked, vomiting lead. Barricade boards shredded. Defenders ducked. Dust plumed. Silas answered with Sharp's glyph. Round drilled Gatling feed crank, weapon jammed. Another arrow flew, hitting loader. Apache war cry split night. Gray cursed, signaled right flank. 15 men charged, laddering over turf. Sam fired both barrels, dropping 2. Miss Reinhardt hurled lantern of whale oil flame whooshed, driving men back. But Gray's second Gatling, hauled via mule cart, finally cleared ditch and barked. From left, bullets chewed levee, ripped irrigation pipes, sent sod flying. Drew felt cane jar from her grip as .45 slug shattered top rail beneath palm. Mud packed beneath Drusilla's fingernails as she clawed free of the riverbank. Silas Quill's hand locked around her wrist like iron warmed by pulse. All night they'd chased Calvin Storm's ragdoll silhouette through foam and shattered trestle wreckage, and all night the Palmer had swallowed both tracks and clues, until dawn finally peeled the horizon open and showed them nothing but driftwood, rafts spinning aimlessly in a silt-brown flood. Caleb had vanished again, leaving only splinters, swirl marks, and a valley still balanced on the edge of a stranger's ambition. Dawn's light felt raw enough to peel nerves, yet Drew could not keep from scanning each eddy as if Caleb might rise like a vengeful catfish, gun still gripped, gospel of empire still dripping venom from his tongue. Nothing surfaced except cattail husks and an occasional drowned steer pulled from double key pasture. Silas coughed river water, RIBS creaking under blood-soaked bandage. Well, Dove, that's twice the man slipped the Undertaker's rope. Either he's the devil's own kin, or we've used up every ounce of luck this valley had left. Drew squeezed his wrist once, a silent promise that luck, like patience, could be reforged under heat. The river isn't finished with him, or with us. She pushed upright, cane forgotten upstream. Pain lanced thigh, but she welcomed it. Pain meant flesh still fought. Behind them, Judith splashed onto shore, dragging a half-empty packing crate, her temple wrapped in linen. Dynamite's gone, but look what floated up, spare Spencer rounds. She shook water off brass. Like a dog flicking rain. Sam Pack joined, pants rolled to knee, sodden blouse clinging to lean muscle. He hefted 2 Gatling crank gears rescued from the gorge. Metal useful, he said. Fashion water wheel, grind corn. Or melt, cast bullets. Drew couldn't help a weary smile. In Sam's world, ruin always contains seeds of reinvention. ###. 1. Casualties and consequence. By noon, they limped back to the ranch along a levee now pockmarked with Gatling gouges. Doc Green waited at gate, exhaustion carved under eyes still bright with defiance. He held telegram pages, ash singed on edges. Governor's envoy delayed Apache raids near Fort Bowie, pulled militia south. 5 days became 7. He exhaled. And Gray's train? Scouts report it reversed to Selway siding, probably regrouping. Drew took pages, scanned broken Morse. Each additional day widened Gray's window and stretched Valley's resolve. She looked at men and women patching barricade, at Apache elders blessing new water channels, at children carrying buckets to half-buried cattle. Resolve held strong, but bodies were few, ammo fewer. Any word on storm loyalists? Silas. Doc single quotes S-mouth tightened. 10 surrendered last night, now claim prisoner of war status under corporate charter. They'll keep stirring trouble from jail. Judith spat muddy tooth. Long as they talk, they breathe. I can fix that discrepancy. No, Drew glared until Judith looked away. We keep moral high ground, ledger-proof enough. Violence only feeds Gray's narrative. Gray writes narrative with dynamite, Silas muttered, but wave of. Pain stole breath. He sank onto stump. #2. A letter from Tucson that evening. Horse courier from Tucson judge arrived carrying sealed packet. Court date set, ledgers accepted as prima facie evidence. But packet included stark warning. Asterisk. Rail interests lobbying territorial council to suspend local liens if violence escalates. Asterisk. Drew gathered key allies Judith, Silas, Sam, Doc, Elder Gray Braid, and schoolteacher Miss Reinhardt around kitchen. Map. We must hold Valley without a single shot more than necessary, she said. If Gray proves we're outlaws, council grants him receivership, Judith huffed. What's nonviolent about Gatlings? Let Gray fire first. Let. Telegraph wires run hot with witness claims that we sought peace. Miss Reinhardt adjusted spectacles. I began diary of events. 30 signatures so far testifying storm agitated. Silas poured coffee, grimaced at copper tang. Witnesses dead don't sign anything. Sam set steaming rice congee bowls. A long table. Then witnesses live longer behind thicker walls. He produced sketch. Earthworks ring shaped like horseshoe hugging levee. Build trench. Hide families, schoolhouse inside inner circle. Fighters outside ring. Gray Braid nodded, tapping sketch. Like Pueblo Kiva people inside, spirits guard outermost. Drew's pulse quickened. We start before moonrise. 3. The circle of clay. 2 nights later. Sweat and shovel turned red earth into a defensive bowl 30 yards across, rimmed with stacked adobe bricks quarried from the collapsed hay barn. Apache masons mixed river silt with straw, taught townsfolk to shape sun-dried defense blocks. By dawn, a waist-high parapet cocooned the inner yard where children now slept amid hay bales while parents rotated watch. Drew's leg mended slow but true under the elders' salves. She could walk without cane, though at night wound throbbed her river heartbeat. Still she pushed daily, eyes scanning west horizon for locomotive steam. Nothing came until third sunset, when a dust plume rose low beyond Widow Rock, too broad for cattle. Silas glassed from water tower stump. Gray's cavalry, about 60 mounted, looks like makeshift but disciplined. Judith cursed. And we've got what, 20 seasoned, 20 more holding rifles like broomsticks? Drew breathed steady. Walls even odds. And we have river. 4. The prisoner's bargain. Caleb Storm washed ashore miles south, snared in willow roots. 2 boys hunting crawdads found him and dragged him to shore, recognizing face from posters. Caleb, delirious, offered gold hidden under Double C Well House in exchange for escort beyond territory. The boys instead bound him with belt and brought to ranch. Drew faced him in makeshift infirmary, his wrists raw from rope. Rainwater dripped from split lip, fever-sweated temples. I could leave you to militia, Caleb, she said, but I need your voice to stop Gray. He laughed, cough rasping. Gray's bigger than me. Bigger than you. Rails always win. Not if you testify he financed your dam illegally. Judge will freeze his assets. Caleb's eyes sparkled greed, even through pain. What do I gain? Life, maybe a chance to rebuild without blood. Your name could shift from villain to cautionary tale. Caleb studied her, saw fire undimmed by wounds. You think redemption's so cheap? No, she said. I think it's priceless and seldom offered twice. He closed eyes. When he opened them, arrogance dimmed. Bring me slate and chalk. I'll write what I can. Drew motioned Sam, who unlocked cuffs. Caleb flexed bruised wrists then. Began to confess. #conf number 5. The night before, steel confession in hand. Drew dispatched 2 riders to Clifton Telegraph, still under repair. Meanwhile, Gray's column camped outside Musket Range, assembling siege wagons. They now had a single field cannon salvaged from county arsenal by way of bribe. Inside Clay Circle, tension weighed like humid rag. Checked Silas's ribs. Re-splinted. Fracture. Try not to breathe when you shoot, he joked. Silas grinned. I'll hold breath until Gray folds. Judith sharpened Bowie to razor. Miss Reinhardt passed coffee to exhaustion-drunk scouts. Sam ladled rice to Pinkerton prisoners, now turned neutral labor once they saw which side fed them. Gray braid painted white glyphs on parapet, spiral for water, jagged line for lightning, open palm for peace. Drew climbed levee, scanning Gray's torches. She found herself reciting prayer her mother once muttered during hailstorm that leveled first wheat field. Asterisk. Let the sky fall gentle even if the earth must shake. Asterisk. Gray attacked at sunrise, cannon belching shell that slammed adobe, shattering 2 blocks but leaving parapet sturdy. Sam's water wheel prototype, now repurposed as catapult, hurled lit kerosene pots into their ranks. Fire drew a horse line. Sideways, buying minutes, Silas, perched behind breastwork, dropped Gray's gunners with 3 shots. Each glyph cartridge found vital, not killing, but disabling knees, shoulders, thighs. Even in war, he echoed Drew's code. Gray pushed infantry. Line Pinkertons firing disciplined volleys. Bullets chipped adobe, sent dust storms swirling. Defenders crouched, returned fire measured to conserve rounds. Judith led sortie of 5 through irrigation culvert, flanking Gray's left. They slashed supply mules, scattering ammo crates. Gray countered with cavalry swing that overran Judith's. Team, 2 fell. Judith retreated bleeding but unbowed. Inside circle, children sang under Miss Reinhardt's trembling baton. Voices rising above gun crack. Palmer River, run and shine. Feed the roots and vines of mine. The song steadied hearts. Noon sun hammered, water ran scarce. Gray massed final push with remaining 40 cannon repositioned to breach gate. Caleb, hearing carnage, begged guard to see Drew. He was ushered to parapet, still shackled. Gray will not stop, Caleb croaked, but he fears reputation. He wrote me once a letter in my strongbox saying, public love matters less than public doubt. If doubt seeds, he retreats. Drew's eyes widened. That letter still at double K? In my office safe, combination 15815. Show crowd his words, they'll doubt. Silas whistled sharply. Too late to fetch. Not if he has it, Caleb said, pointing at incoming cavalry. Among them rode Algin and Dwyer, holding satchel emblazoned with storm crest. Drew pivoted. Silas one bullet. Silas sighted Dwyer. Breath held. Finger tightened. Bullet zipped, puncturing satchel strap. Bag flew, spiral through dust. Cavalry thundered past. Sam burst from cover, sprinted into no man's dust swirl, scooped. Satchel rolled behind abandoned crate as bullets stitched sand. He crawled back, face bloodied by graze, but grinning, inside satchel, paper slick with sweat. Gray's ornate letterhead sealing confession of bribes, sabotage plans, condemnation. Of water rights as quaint frontier sentiment. Miss Reinhardt seized letter, pinned it to tall signboard fashioned from feed plank, hoisted above parapet. Wind snapped sheet ink bold. The entire field could read header. Asterisk, Mum Gray private correspondence, not for public inquiry. Asterisk Pinkertons. Nearest slowed mid-charge. Dwyer shouted, but uncertainty cracked discipline. Some lowered rifles, whispers spread. Gray rode cannon cart, eyes narrowing at sign. He barked order, but men hesitated. They hadn't signed up for massacre, now painted as criminal. Drew seized moment. She climbed parapet, leg trembling, raised voice through megaphone tin. Gray's own words reveal his lawless intent. Protect. Your Honor, lay down arms. She waved letter high, ink catching glare. Gray leveled pistol at her. Silas fired, pressed by ribs pain, but aimed true shot knocked Gray's gun hand, grazing wrist. Gray cursed. Blood spattering ivory cane. Gray Braid stepped forward, arms sky wide, chanting water prayer. Apache scouts loosed volley of arrows, each striking ground ahead of Pinkertons like fence stakes. Not one hit flesh, but message clear. Faces under dust bandanas glanced to Gray, to arrows, to letter. Morale buckled. First row dropped rifles. Second row followed. Gray screamed, spurred horse toward Drew in rage. Calf roped his saddle horn. Judith, despite wounds, had lassoed from culvert gap. She yanked, horse reared. Gray flew, landing amid surrendered men. Silence rippled outward, broken only by steam hiss from cracked cannon barrel. Hash, hash, hash. 7. Aftermath echoes. The battle ended not with shot but with a collective exhale. Pinkertons shuffled weapons into heap, surrendered sidearms. Dwyer slunk away, but scouts herded him back. Drew's knees buckled. Silas caught her. Cheers rose, blending with river rush. Governor's militia arrived next morning, late but impressed. They took Gray and Dwyer into custody, accepted Caleb's sworn affidavit, and sealed ledger evidence. Judge convened makeshift hearing under Cottonwoods, ruled immediate injunction against any corporate claim until full trial. Valley erupted. In applause, the starless exhaustion that followed tasted sweeter than any victory toast Drew remembered. But she knew penultimate battles often hid last daggers. Hash hash number 8, rumor of return a week later. While rebuilding trestle for supply, a child found tracks leading toward Blanca Mesa past one set of boots, limping, heading south. Caleb's storm had vanished again, shackles filed by something amid debris. Drew sighed. Some ghosts refused graves. Yet she felt neither fear nor anger, only resolve. Caleb might drag old grudges longer than any chain, but the valley now possessed tools to face whatever weather. He raised ###09. Gathering storm yet again, late August clouds, stacked like warships over desert. Drew stood on finished levee, Kane once more accompaniment, but not crutch. Silas approached, letter in hand. Tucson trial date, final October 2nd. They want you front and center. She nodded, I'll testify. But first we harvest. Flood-turned fields lush, Wheathead's heavy. Corn tall as hopes. Silas hefted sharps. Better hurry. Lightning's never far. A thunderclap boomed distant where Blanca. Mesa cut horizon, and for a split second, the flash-etched silhouette of a lone rider against hard sky. Drew narrowed eyes, lips curling into grim smile. Then we'll be ready to read the flash. 1. Last time, wind tousled her hair. Palmer glimmered under new sun. And everyone waiting in its voyage felt the tremor of one more story rushing into view. The Palmer whispered harvest songs now. A gentle lilt of current under reeds turned golden, as though the river itself had decided to hum while the valley bent to its autumn labors. Wheat bowed heavy-headed. Pumpkins swelled fat in corners of every kitchen garden, and even the cactus pears blushed ruby, grateful for the long drinks poured from sluice gates that had once been padlocked by Caleb Storm's greed. The flood was a memory and a promise both, soaked into every root system and every conversation. But memories, like roots, sometimes split stones before they settle, and the stones still left to split were formidable. A trial in Tucson, a wounded empire of rail-sniffing opportunity, and a single fugitive whose ghost prints trailed southward toward the border where law wore thinner boots. Drew first noticed the seasons change, not by leaf-color cottonwoods kept their green this far south until first real frost, but by the way morning fog lingered low, curling around horse fetlocks like a cat seeking warmth. That, and the way her thigh no longer sang pain when she climbed the levee steps. Strength, like water, had returned in quiet increments until she found herself striding the ridge without cane, watching the men and women glean and laughing when Sam Pack insisted on hand-sorting every ear of corn for weevils. She could almost believe peace had claimed permanent residency. Almost. ###. 1. The stranger at Widow Rock. The valley's first brush with lingering danger came one pale dawn when Judith spotted a stranger at Widow Rock, staring down at the rebuilt trestle like someone measuring a wound that refused to scar. He wore a long linen coat too fine for ranch work and carried a small black valise in one hand. Through spyglass she noted no weapons, yet his posture ramrod straight, boots precisely placed spoke soldier or clerk with soldier training. By the time patrol reached the rock, only footprints remained, angling south. He had taken nothing, violated nothing, yet left tension fluttering like an untucked thread. When she reported, Drew and Silas exchanged a glance heavy with unspoken names. Gray? A Pinkerton scout? Or Caleb? But Caleb would never bother with valise or pressed cuffs. Caleb moved like Tempest, not ledger keeper. Doc Green shrugged. Could be some land agent come to sniff out bargains. Flood made headlines. Folks smell opportunity after disaster. Drew pressed lips thin. Opportunity always rode double with opportunist. She needed eyes spread wide. ##number 2. Letters on the Winden, early September. A telegram arrived from Clifton. Station, * Rail Baron Gray released on bond. Trial adjourned to October 2nd. Gray petitioning Territorial Council for change of venue. * That same morning, another wire crawled in. Caldwell and Sons Bank announces acquisition of Double Key liens. Caldwell served as Gray's preferred financier. The message reeked of a second front. If Gray could not win water by force, he would purchase the land beneath it, starve the valley by paperwork. Silas hissed through teeth. Man's trying a banker's siege now. Sam only smiled, stirring. Pot of chili over open flame. Paper cuts skin but not bone. Bones stronger. But bones also break under enough pressure. Drew reminded herself. She gathered ledger copies, Caleb's confession slate, and every signed eyewitness statement into one satchel, wrapping them in oilcloth sealed with wax. This she entrusted to Miss Reinhardt and 2 Apache riders bound for Tucson a fortnight ahead of trial. Hand to judge's clerk directly, she instructed. And do not ride the rail. Whatever they promise, take the mountain postal track. Miss Reinhardt, spectacles flashing, saluted like a proper corporal. Judith eyed the departing trio. Let's hope railroads don't own all the stagecoaches too. Silas loaded 2 new cartridges into his sharps, the etched snake glyphs nearly rubbed smooth from use. If they do, we cut reins. 3. The Harvest Dance in the Broken Fiddle. Late September brought the Harvest Dance, a tradition revived by Miss Reinhardt to remind the valley that joy bred resilience. They cleared the rebuilt barn's hayloft, strung gas lanterns from the rafters, and convinced Gray Braid's grandson to carve river turtles into 6 fresh cedar posts for good luck. Sam roasted goat over mesquite. Doc Green tapped 2 barrels of sarsaparilla. And Silas produced a battered harmonica while an older ranch hand, Walt Jenkins, tuned a fiddle rescued from tower wreckage. The dance began under swirling firefly lanterns, boots stomping dust into sweet haze. Drew let herself be guided by Silas across the planked floor, his ribs still tender but grin bordering foolish. Judith whirled children in mock 2-step. Doc Green blushed under praise for gingerbread that wasn't half bad. For 3 hours laughter swallowed memory of gunfire. Then the fiddle snapped mid-bow. Walt cursed good-naturedly, peering at horsehair strings, but his gaze snagged on something beyond lantern glow. The stranger from Widow Rock leaning unobtrusively against shadowed beam, still holding valise. He watched the crowd, expression unreadable. Walt nudged Silas, who nudged Drew. When they turned back, the man was gone. Only a subtle swirl of straw and dust where boots pivoted. They searched perimeter. Found nothing except a single calling card. Pinned to a barn post, ink florid and precise. Asterisk, Edward F. Braith, Special Claims Adjuster, Caldwell and Sons. Asterisk # number 4. Braith's gentle war. The next morning, Braith arrived openly, hat tipped, smile polite. He requested audience with the proprietor. Drew, flanked by Silas and Judith, greeted him at porch. Braith opened valise, withdrew parchment sheets featuring Caldwell and Sons letterhead. I bear notice of intent to recoup collateral, he said, voice like melted wax soft but binding. Double T liens now property of Caldwell. Under Article 10 of Territorial Code, default authorizes judiciary sale at earliest convenience. I am prepared to offer Marquette Holdings a fair market preemption purchase. He named a figure absurdly low. Drew did not hide disgust. Your fair market smells like wet vultures. Valley won't sell. Braith dabbed forehead with pristine kerchief. Unfortunate. Then we proceed to court seizure concurrent with Gray's case. Meanwhile, any expansion or harvest on encumbered land constitutes waste, punishable by injunction. Judith placed hand on Bowie. Fields already half cut. Plan to stop our scythes? Braith's smile remained. I carry only paper. Sheriff's deputies enforce when notice served. He snapped case shut, turned, and walked away under escort of 2 Pinkertons now wearing Caldwell badges. Doc Green spat, near geranium pot. Deputy still 3 days out. Finish harvest before paper shackles land. Drew rallied Valley again. They worked through 2 sleepless nights. Engines of human grit slicing wheat, stacking bales, ferrying produce into limestone caverns safe from seizure. Overhead moon wind approval. # number 5. The sky splits again on the eve of departure for Tucson. Samuel Pack woke to sulfur reek. Flames licked grain silo built from old trestle timbers. Fire raced windward, embers leaping field lines. While others pumped river water, Silas traced footprints southward. Boot prints measured stride. Braith's fine saws. Or Caleb's. Come back? He followed until prints vanished into rocky arroyo. At dawn the silo charred but stood. Grain inside smoked yet salvageable. Drew's anger, though, charred hotter than cedar. Whoever lit match knew grain meant winter. Gray Braid murmured prophecy. Rattler strikes not for hunger, but for fear of being stepped on. Cut path. Wide he slithers away, Corner him, he coils again. Judith tested silo boards. Corners tighter now. Trial tomorrow. Braith will push. 6. Tucson's halls of echoes drew. Silas, Sam, Doc, Judith, and a small contingent boarded. Stage for Tucson pre-dawn. Scouts rode ahead. The valley's defense fell to Gray Braid, Apache braves, and townsfolk veterans, enough, they hoped, to deter sabotage. Tucson's courthouse rose sun-baked and stern, adobe pillars bracketing wooden gallows abandoned since last mining riot. Inside, Judge Hamilton Prescott presided, a hawk-eyed man rumored incorruptible. Caldwell attorneys filled one bench, Gray's silk-suited counsel another. Caleb Storm, hair-trimmed, face less arrogant, sat flanked by marshals, testimony spooled across 2 grueling days. Miss Reinhardt's diary entries. Apache elders recounting water theft. Silas describing trestle sabotage. Drew presenting ledgers. Caleb confirming bribes and Gray funding. Caldwell's lawyers hammered, objected, painted Marquette as radical vigilantes. Prescott overruled with measured patience. Day 2 afternoon, Braith took stand. He claimed Caldwell had no knowledge of bribery, purchased liens in good faith after Storm insolvency. Drew's counsel produced Gray's private letter, discarding public love. Braith flinched but maintained posture. Cross-examination cut slow. Did Caldwell review Storm assets physically? Braith: my preliminary inspection noted operational dam. Counsel: you inspected after dam destroyed. Braith: assets value negative but salvageable. With capital. Counsel: salvageable through force? Braith: through lawful reconstruction. Counsel produced affidavit from Pinkertons describing orders to seize by violence. Jury murmured. Final witness: Caleb. He confirmed he wrote Braith urging Caldwell to foreclose quickly and that Gray instructed use of private force if necessary. A hush dropped like blanket. # number 7. Verdict under Stormlight jury deliberated 3 hours while Desert Storm brewed. When they returned, thunder rattled rafters. They found Gray guilty of conspiracy, bribery, attempted unlawful seizure. Caldwell's liens voided under doctrine of inequitable conduct. Caleb sentenced lesser term for cooperation. Gray faced heavy fines and 10-year prison. As gavel fell, sky split, lighting arcs danced beyond windows. Drew exhaled years of tension at once. She felt Silas's hand squeeze hers, ribs still taped but joy bright. Outside, rain pelted adobe, sending courthouse eaves steaming. Reporters swarmed. Drew addressed them briefly. This verdict belongs to the river and to every person who listened when water cried for justice. 8. The final thunder march. They returned to Valley victorious, but rumor preceded them. Caldwell, stung, sold residual Storm holdings to an anonymous buyer rumored to operate from across the Mexican border. Wagons loaded with rifles spotted heading north along Blanco Pass. Some said Caleb, transferred to Yuma prison, escaped en route with inside help. Drew refused to let rumor poison harvest feast. They danced again and rebuilt barn, fiddle replaced, harmonica bright. Yet her gaze drifted often to starlit ridge, silhouette of Widow Rock black against Cosmos. Late that night, a single rifle crack echoed from Cottonwoods. Guards found Braith lying near levee, shot through thigh. Beside him, letters sealed with scorpion wax. Asterisk: sun sets but rises elsewhere. The river never forgets. Signed, C. Braith, fevered, whispered that Caleb escaped and sought foreign backers. He'll dam river at its source next time underground, where eyes can't see. Drew studied the ink, felt old fire kindle. But she also sensed weight shift. Battlefields change shape, yet war stays same. She no longer needed to chase every Storm Valley, now had many guardians. She turned letter over to Marshall, then walked to levee edge where Palmer glowed moonlight. Silas joined, resting rifle on shoulder. What's next? He asked. She smiled wearily. Fence mending, schoolhouse roof. Maybe teaching kids how water wheels turn grain. He arched brow. And when Caleb rises, Drew skimmed stone across surface. Rings widened until melding with flow. Then the valley rises too. Not just me. We built a river-wide shadow, Silas broad enough for all of us to stand beneath. Lightning flashed far south, silent. Silas chuckled. Predictable. She shook head. No, read the flash. It's heading another direction. Sam approached. Coffee steaming. No gunfire, no flood tonight. Drink. They sipped, silence companionable. Stars wheeled overhead. Water whispered secrets of both triumph and caution. Drew listened, hand-finding Silas's. She did not feel towers falling, or dynamite, or iron law. She felt currents steady, unstoppable. Moving toward tomorrow. Behind them, barn lights glowed. Children sang harvest hymns. Judith practiced lasso. With one arm, teaching a farm boy how to track wind. Green dozed under porch, satisfied no one required stitching. Gray braids smoked sage, murmuring that the river spirit finally smiled. Drew closed eyes. Caleb's shadow might slither yet, but fear's grip had loosened. This valley, forged by drought, flood, bullets, and hope, could carry its own legend now. She had been its spear, its shield, but no hero owned a river. Water belonged to all who respected flow. She opened eyes, tipping hat to moon. Ride. The current, she whispered. Silas nodded. And above them the stars older than any dam, any gun, any ambition kept their patient watch as Palmer rushed onward, singing of justice hard won and the dawn still eager to arrive.